Hello friends, thank you for joining me today. I am going to be talking about and reviewing A Court of Mist and Fury. This is the second book in the Court of Thorns and Roses series by Sarah J. Maas, and this is going to be a spoiler review, so I can talk freely about my reactions and thoughts. I did a review of the first book that has both spoiler-free and spoiler-filled sections if you want to check that out. I will link that video, but just heads up, this is going to be a spoiler-filled review. So as a quick recap, leading into book 2, this takes place shortly after book 1 ends, and the whole arc with Amarantha and her reign of terror in the Feylands was wrapped up and finished quite nicely, and she was defeated, and the curse that she put on Tamlin and his court was broken, and they're basically trying to reestablish normalcy in the Spring Court, and well, and everywhere, I guess. And Feyre, at the end of the last book, was made with a capital M into a Fey by the combined powers of all of the High Lords of Prythian, in order to bring her back from the dead. And at the end of book 1, she and Tamlin and his court return to the Springlands. So starting book 2, Feyre is very distressed and traumatized by what she was forced to do under the mountain. And she had to murder, if you remember, those 2 innocent fairies with her own hands. Amarantha made her do it, and it fucks her up. She's so depressed and traumatized and just haunted by all of these nightmares every night about what happened, and she just starts just wasting away. And it was really sad, but to be honest, it was also not very fun to read about. For like the first 150 pages. And that's part of what makes this. So I gave this 5 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. I did round up from a 4.5, and those first 150 pages are part of what made it a 4.5 for me. It was just really frustrating reading about her just stuck in this rut. It was just like a never-ending depression fest, and I was just, I was ready for something else to happen. And granted, part of that whole situation was Tamlin's fault. It wasn't just all Feyre, by forcing her to basically do nothing all day and not letting her go anywhere. But I still don't hate Tamlin. That might ruffle a few feathers, even after what happens at the end of this book. I mean, obviously I hate what he does, but that he's doing what he thinks is best to protect Feyre, and he's willing to do anything to get her back because he loves her. He's not loving her the way that she needs or in a healthy way, but he's doing it out of love. And to me, that's so sad and tragic and just messed up, and frustrating at the same time. His love for her just becomes this twisted, ugly obsession, and I think that it's really interesting character development for Tamlin. And Feyre is going through all this stuff, but you can't forget that he suffered too. He's hurting too. It's not just Feyre, it's not just Rhys. He suffered too, and the way that he ends up dealing with his emotions is directing it outwards in anger and being controlling, while with Feyre, she mostly turned it inwards and started wasting away. I don't know, it was almost like watching a villain in the early stages of being born with Tamlin. And come on, who doesn't love a good villain origin story? My cat is jumping up on me and wants some attention, so here's a quick little cat break. Here you go, baby. Here's Lilith again. She and her brother Lucifer are napping in the windowsill. Can you see her? Here she is. I was gonna kick them out, but they're just being nice and quiet, although she is very curious. So I think I might have to put her down though, because I don't want my mic to get muffled. So say goodbye to Lilith for now. Okay, so I was talking about Tamlin, villain origin story. So yeah, like I don't think that Tamlin is actually gonna turn out to be a bad guy by the end or anything, I hope. But even though I was shocked that he was behind luring them all to Hybern and making that crazy stupid deal with the king, I was also just really fascinated by his blinding focus on getting her back. He has just totally lost his grip on the reality of what's happening and how he treated her, and it's made even more complicated by the fact that, you know, the whole world except Valaris only knows Rhys as this cruel person. You know, so why wouldn't Tamlin assume that Rhys manipulated her somehow? Like, it's all, you know, based on how Rhys has presented himself and his group to the world. It's all just so deliciously messed up, and just, yeah, that ending was really intense, and I'm very curious to see how things go down with Feyre, Tamlin, and Lucien in the Spring Court. You know, Lucien clearly knows that she's up to something. He's not fooled. I've always liked Lucien, and because it's Sarah J. Maas, I knew that eventually the majority of the main characters were going to be paired with one another. That's just how she rolls. Nesta and Cassian are going to be a thing, like, I'm sure of it, but I didn't see the Lucien and Elaine pairing coming. That was kind of out of nowhere. And I didn't see them being turned into Fae. I didn't know that. That wasn't spoiled for me. I had no idea that that was going to happen, so that was a crazy surprise. But kind of taking it back a little bit, I think that Maas did a great job of intertwining Feyre's mental health recovery with the slow burn romance with Rhysand and getting to know him. I was hesitant to ship them, like, for a lot of this book before I finally was like, okay, I like them. I like Rhys, and partially it was because I feel so bad for Tamlin and what he's become, and I thought that they were cute in book one. But also, I mean, because of the things that Rhys said and did in book one didn't make me like him. It was, you know, it was always in the back of my mind that even though Rhys is charming and not actually a bad guy, he still did some cruel things in book one. And at this point, I can't remember exactly all the details, but, you know, he was a bad guy in book one. And, you know, I guess I fell for his act like everyone else outside of Valaris. But I didn't really have an excuse to keep disliking Rhys because Maas very thoroughly explains the reasoning behind, like, every single one of those bad things in that long monologue that Rhys does right before he accepts Feyre's soup. You know what I mean? And, you know, of course, the whole mating bond thing, in the end, it doesn't matter how well Feyre and Tamlin might have gotten along before. The mating bond makes all of that stuff irrelevant. I don't particularly care for the mating bond as a trope. I know it's a popular fantasy romance device with, you know, non-human characters, and I just accept that this is just part of this series and the worlds that Sarah J. Maas likes to create, because she has her own kind of universe, kind of like Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere. Like, I think all of her books take place in the same kind of universe, not the same world, but the same universe. But anyway, yeah, so I just accept that that's part of this series, and I accept that I'm going to be reading the words mate and male and female, you know, until the very end. I've just accepted that. I enjoy Maas's world building and overarching plots enough to, you know, really not be too bothered by it at this point. I do kind of worry that Feyre's powers are going to make her feel a little Mary Sue-ish to me, because, like, she wasn't actually, you know, OP or anything in this book, because she doesn't yet, you know, have a firm grip on how to use her powers yet. She's still trying to figure that out. But the fact that she has the power of all of the High Lords is just crazy. She can, you know, she can use fire, water, she can shapeshift, she has the shadow stuff, the winnowing, just all of this stuff she can do. Like, she's gonna be unstoppable, and I'm hoping I get to see her, you know, really put those powers to use in a cool display versus her just, you know, trying to figure it out. I mean, I'm sure that's gonna happen later. It would be a letdown if she had all of that power and didn't do anything with it, but it's just a little close to feeling like Feyre can just do too many things. I think that this was more character driven than the last book, but I really enjoyed learning about the Court of Dreams. I liked all of them. I liked their dynamics, and I liked learning about their history as friends, and there was more world building as well, which I always enjoy. There was cool magic and creatures and just places, different places you finally get to see more of, not just the Spring Court. And like, I see Valaris everywhere when I'm looking online for bookish, merch or clothing. And, it's usually, the mountain paired with "To the stars who listen and the dreams that are answered." I'm happy that I now know the context for it. I had that quote memorized before I even read the first book because of how all over the place it is. There were a few things that had me wondering and kind of raising an eyebrow a bit, like how did Rhys sense Feyre before they had even met? Like, is that something that all Fae can do? Like, did Lucian also sense Elaine since they're mates? Because Elaine and Feyre were both human. It's the same situation. And why didn't Feyre also have that moment of like shock and recognition that Rhys did when the bond, snapped into place at the end of ACOTAR? They were both Fae at the time, even if she didn't realize what the bond was. Like, why didn't she feel it? That seems like, I don't know, yeah, why didn't she feel it and Rhys did? And when that legion of Ator, Ators, I don't know if Ator is a name or a race of creatures, but those flying creatures, when they attack Valaris, they have that blue stone stuff that neutralizes Fey magic or whatever, and they use it to break through the barriers protecting the city, but there was no sign that they used it to protect against some of the magic attacks that the good guys were, throwing at them. I don't know, like, why didn't that material neutralize some of that? So there were just, some things that weren't perfect about ACOMAF for me, but I still really enjoyed it overall. Definitely enough to round up to 5 for Goodreads. And I'm just enjoying my journey so far. Compared to how Throne of Glass started, this is better so far. I've liked most things more than I liked Throne of Glass right off the bat, and there are less books. I think there are more books coming, but yeah, I have Court of Wings and Ruin and the novella, and then A Court of Silver Flames, just waiting for me. And yeah, I'm enjoying the journey. I am very pleasantly surprised that I am enjoying this. So yeah, we'll see when I get around to the next book. I have a few other things that I'm trying to get to before that. But anyway, yeah, I enjoyed this. This was great. And I hope you guys enjoyed watching, and let me know if you have any questions or comments or anything to talk about related to this book down in the comments. I would love to read those and respond to those and kind of chat about it. So yeah, I hope you guys have a great day, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.